many of you know that we formed what we call the Poole and Christchurch Bays Association, which really was designed to pick up the views of residents across the piece, not just Bournemouth, but from Purbeck in the west, right through to Highcliffe beyond Christchurch in the east. And I hope I can reflect the views of many of you this afternoon in this short speech. I think it'll be getting shorter as the afternoon goes by. Headlines. This project is too big, it's too close, and it's in totally the wrong location. Time for this, I've got to get on. It'll industrialise the bays, as we said there. Residents, I believe, are overwhelmingly against this project. Chairman, wait for the best bits. Chairman, we're confronting the biggest planning application to hit this town in several decades. If it were approved, it will change the character of Bournemouth forever.
Hear, hear.
Why are we residents of Bournemouth? Well, it's a good place to work, to study, to live, as far as I'm concerned, to retire. Good schools. This is Folkestone. Fantastic reputation. University. Good hospitals, I'm glad to say. Blue chip businesses choose to locate here. And great shopping, I understand. But many towns claim this quality. So what's so special about Bournemouth? The special feature of Bournemouth is the spectacular coastal environment, as other speakers have said. The miles of glorious blue flag beaches and safe bathing. Chairman, much of this as a result of Bournemouth's endeavours in the 70s. You should be proud of that work, because you diverted sewage away from the beach. Fantastic view. Frankly, it's unique in the UK. If you tell anyone that you come from Bournemouth, the immediate response, in my opinion, is always the same. What a beautiful part of the country. We visit. We have many happy memories. We do love the area. This happens to me time and time again, and I'm sure it does to many of you. So when you say that a brand new wind farm proposed centre stage in the bay, they either don't believe you or think you're nuts and laugh in your face. I wonder if you've had that experience. Frankly, if you had to locate 200 of these monster turbines somewhere around the coast of the UK, you'd be hard-pressed to spoil a more sensitive location than this, one of the best-known areas of outstanding beauty. Where is the sense in that? As I said before, this is too big, too close, and in totally the wrong location. Too big. You'll recognise these famous icons. Notice the turbine for Navitas is a third higher than the Bournemouth balloon at its flying altitude. And as you can see, it dwarfs the London Eye. It's too close. Andrew Langley showed you why, and it's in totally the wrong location. Now, residents have got 6 main objections to the scheme. These are our top 6. Some have been mentioned, so I'll touch on others shortly. But first of all, why wind? There are problems. As Sue said, it does work. The problem is it's intermittent and variable. It needs 100% backup. Unlike the rated capacity of other generating plant and generating stations, where a generating stream can be taken on and off and isolated separately. And it's expensive. Forget free wind as a generator. It's 3 times the cost of conventional fuel. And of course, this cost finds its way into our bills. Nevertheless, as a nation, you've seen, we've got a real appetite for offshore wind power. By 2011, it's estimated that we had half of the world's installed capacity. Half of the world's installed. You might think, Chairman, we've done our fair share. But on we go, blindly following government diktat, subsidising chiefly foreign firms out of your pockets. And now we propose spoiling one of the gems in the UK's environmental crown jewels in the process. So what about our new foreign friends, the Dutch and the French, that we're going to get into bed with? Well, as Mark said earlier, Eneco built this wind farm off the Dutch coast, but it's much smaller than Navitus, and it was further out than the 12-mile limit, which Eneco tell us is enshrined in Dutch law. Okay for the Dutch then, but we're asked to accept Navitus Bay, the bulk of which is within 12 nautical miles from our shores. This doesn't seem quite fair to me. As Dr. Langley said earlier, the government's own experts recommend a minimum of 12 nautical miles distance from the shore, and in a highly sensitive area like this, the recommendations are for much further distance. But the developer ignores that, the government's equivocal when even our MPs challenge them, and we have to put up with it. Well, why should we? We could learn from the French. They made sure to protect their World Heritage Site, Mont Saint-Michel, you may know it well. Not surprisingly, the wind farm proposed nearby was quickly abandoned. But not in the UK, it seems. The developers say, don't worry about the Jurassic Coast, the project won't put its status at risk. But hold on, in the next breath, they say that that was their own conclusion. There's no support for it. UNESCO haven't made a decision yet. Why should we take the risk? Much has been said about noise. The developers say there'll be no noise problems, but they won't show us their calculations. The noise assessment standard they use specifically states that it's not suitable for offshore projects, whereas you would know the noise is reflected off the mirror surface of the ocean. So when our noise expert John Yellen checks out the sound levels over water, we find that the noise levels will be breached in Bournemouth. Don't worry, say the developers, there's not been a problem on any other site, but those sites are only about half the power that Navitus would be, so that's not very reassuring. 100% of Bournemouth would suffer noise above the government limit. And by the way, don't forget the 4 years of construction piling noise, all ours. Ask the residents of Withensea on the Yorkshire coast how they're getting on with the piling just offshore there. These are the sorts of comments we're getting. Now, Mark Smith covered tourism in a level of detail, so I won't dwell on it, but I would ask you to focus on the two numbers on that chart. 32% drop in visitors and 14 during the construction life. That's 25 years we're talking about there. And on the subject of Great Yarmouth, do we really want to compare Bournemouth with failing resorts like Yarmouth? Needless to say, the wind farm has done yet little to reduce Yarmouth's decline. Don't worry, say the developers. We'll create a visitor centre. You can run boat trips out to see the turbines close up. Do we seriously think that sort of thing is in any way going to make up for the devastation of our tourism industry? Of course not. Why should we take the risk? Navitus Bay could see nearly 200 new obstructions in one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. The channels may claim many ships in the past. Here are two recent disasters, Torrey Canyon on the top and the Napoli. Do we really want to run this risk right at the entrance to what is our busiest port, Southampton? And don't underestimate the risks to air-sea rescue and recovery when things go wrong in such a congested area. There's also concern about interference with communications and radar, both critical in rescue situations. Why take the risk? Bird kill from chopping blades is widely reported. At Navitus Bay, clearly there'll be nearly 600 blades for our local and migrating birds to pass to get to their feeding and nesting sites. Each of these blades could have a tip speed of over 200 miles an hour. What chance would a passing flock of birds have without heavy losses? This specimen is the Alderney gannet, a beautiful local bird with 6 feet wingspan. It's one of many at risk. Why? Well, as this chart shows, it lives in Alderney and feeds off the needles. So you can see the potential for tragedy I'll not say any more. But it's one of hundreds of species that live in or migrate through the area, north to south and east to west. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more congested location for a wind farm. Why should we take the risk? I hope in this short time, Chairman, I've convinced you that Navitas Bay is bad news for residents, is bad news for Bournemouth, and is bad news for the area. It must be stopped. What about our MPs, you say? Surely they'll convince government of its folly. Well, fortunately, all 5 of our local MPs are on our side. But the fact is that offshore wind is still at the heart of government's energy policy. And MPs, remember, don't get a vote on this application. What about our local councils? Bournemouth, surely they have a role. Yes, but they're only statutory consultees. They don't decide the application. Ed Davey, one man, does. Chairman, our message to Bournemouth Council today is that we will play our part in objecting, but we need your support with some of the heavy lifting. We want to see this scheme quickly confined to the dustbin of history.
Yeah.
So that brings me to talk to the most important people in the room, to you, the residents of Bournemouth. We've got the pleasure of living and working in this beautiful area. Just as the Needles and Old Harry act as natural guardians to the bay, we should play our part as guardians of this beauty for the benefit of others, not just for ourselves. We must do all we can to stop this development. So I'm asking you to play your part, all of you, each and every one. As you go here from here today, I want you to be thinking what I need to know more about this site. How can I take part in this process? Feeling, I love Bournemouth. Feeling, I love Bournemouth, and I want to protect my town and the coast for the future. And doing, I'm going to do all I can to stop this monstrous proposal in its tracks. We're being asked to gamble the future of this town and its surroundings on a project that does nothing to save the planet or anyone living on it. We take the risks, the developer, remember, takes the profit. So don't just go from this meeting. Don't just go from this meeting saying it was an interesting discussion. Unless you do something, we're at risk. Keep Bournemouth special, or conversations will become, oh yes, I used to visit, but not since the wind farm was built. It can be done. Other offshore wind farms have already been cancelled. Is there a more obvious candidate to add to that list? I want you to commit this day, the 10th of May, that you'll play your part so that when you look back in a year's time, you will see that your contribution made people see common sense in binning this ridiculous plan. Register your objection with the planning inspectorate now. Take one of our cards outside. It'll tell you exactly how to do it. Have your say. Stop Navitas Bay. Thank you. Here's your first task.
Thank you, Roy, for summarising residents' concerns. The next speaker is the Leader of the Council.